Hi, I'm Tom Edwards. I'm a potter in Evergreen, Colorado, and this video was made for Miss Edwards' 7th grade English class at the Bethune School in Phoenix, Arizona. And it's a resource for the book A Single Shard by Linda Sue Park. And what I want to show in this video is the similarities and differences between making pottery in the 21st century and what the book described as making pottery in the 12th century. And what amazed me when I started thinking about this is there's actually a lot more similarities than there are differences. So I'm just going to take you through how I make my pots and talk about the process and show you how I work, and then that'll relate to the book. What the first similarity that really got me in the book was the character Tree Year, the 12-year-old boy's fascination with pottery. I totally related to that because I started making pottery when I was 15 years old, and I took a class in high school and I just got caught up in it. Literally the first week I was just enthralled with the process of making pottery, and I basically have been doing that for the rest of my life. I'm 57 years old, and I started making pottery for a living when I was 22. So I am a lifelong potter, not unlike Min, the character in the book, the master potter. I think I'm just going to take you through the process of making pots and show you how I work. The first part of the process is preparing the clay for throwing on the wheel. And here's the first big difference, I think, between how I work and how it works in the 12th century, which is my clay. My clay comes from Los Angeles, California. It's made in a factory there, and I buy my clay, as opposed to the 12th century Korean potters dug their clay out of a riverbed. So that's a huge difference, and I spend a lot less time preparing my clay. What I'm doing now is I'm getting ready to wedge the clay, which is putting it in a spiral motion. And my pots, when I throw pots, I throw them in a series, all kind of the same pots, and I weigh the clay out, so each pot will be about the same size. So this is called wedging, and it's basically putting the clay in a spiral and getting it ready for the wheel. So what I'll do is I'm going to get a dozen balls of clay ready here, and I weigh them out to just the right weight, and then we'll put on the wheel. The process of throwing pottery hasn't changed at all since the 12th century. It's still the same thing. What is different is I have an electric wheel, and they didn't have electricity back in the 12th century. So what they had was called a kick wheel. And what it was a giant round stone sort of slab underneath that the potter would kick with his foot. And then that would spin around, and the spinning stone would keep the energy, and then the potter would work on that, constantly kicking as he threw. I don't have to do that because I've got electricity. So let me show you how I throw. What I'm going to do is a standard bowl form that I do. This is my ice cream bowl. I've got my balls of clay here wedged up, and this is called centering, and it's basically getting the clay completely round and all the particles of clay aligned in a center. You go up and down a couple passes. You're always adding water to the clay because the water is it keeps it smooth. If you didn't use the water, your hands would stick to the clay. Now, I'm not going to talk while I do this. I'm just going to do it. Okay, now this is the interesting part. This is kind of my own little alteration on throwing, and it's called altering, and it gives it this really neat kind of wavy rim, and it's a pretty easy way to get this really fancy, uneven, bumpy rim. And And then go back. This is called a rib, and apparently the first potters used animal bones for ribs, is what they say. What they tell you in pottery class. I don't know if that's true. And what's nice about this rib is it smooths the surface of the clay real nicely. And this one I'm just sort of looking at the shape of the bowl, making sure it's a nice, clean, smooth. And that's pretty much it. That's all it takes. And then this wire cuts it so it pops off it's called a bat, this piece of wood. And then take a look at this. This is so, see the bowl stays nice and true to its shape. I don't have to pick it up. And that's how we do it. These are the bowls that I threw yesterday, and this is a day's worth of throwing. And today I'm going to be trimming these bowls and putting handles on these mugs. And one thing about working with clay that hasn't changed at all in thousands of years is you're always concerned with how dry or wet the clay is, because when you're trimming or attaching handles, it has to be just right. There's water inside the clay and it evaporates. And one thing that's way different from how they did it in the 12th century is we have plastic. And this plastic is the greatest invention. I think it was invented around, plastic sheeting was invented in the 1950s. And you just cover pots up, keep them wet overnight, and then come back in the morning and they're ready to go. In the 12th century, they actually had entire rooms that they would seal with pitch or tar to keep the pots moist that way. But the process is, again, still the same. Another similarity with the book is that I live here. My studio is in a garage next to the house, and so I'm just like Min. I have my wife and I live in the house there, and I come out and work in the studio, which is actually great for taking the plastic off of pots and letting pots dry and going back and watching TV or having dinner and firing the kiln, and it's a very convenient way to have your studio in your home. Okay, now it's time to trim the pots. It's a pretty simple process. These were thrown, they're kind of heavy right here. So this is a foam rubber bat. What's nice is these little points here kind of stick in and hold the pot down to the wheel. And again, they didn't have foam rubber back in the 12th century, but they did. Trimming was actually very similar. It's a neat process. This is a wire tool. It just kind of goes in and cuts it. And it's real important that the pot is thrown the right thickness. And what I'm doing now is just kind of going in and making the shape. It's going to be a more graceful shape than it was before it was trimmed. Now I'm going to go in and this is the center of the pot. And one interesting thing is the words we use to describe the parts of a bowl or a mug or a plate is like this is the foot of the pot. The bottom of it is the foot. There's the lip, there's the shoulder, and these words have been used for hundreds of years to describe pots. And okay, so I'm digging this out right here, and that's about the right thickness. I throw them all about the same, and you can tap it to kind of hear how thick it is. But since I've been doing these, I do this shape a lot. These ice cream bowls are very popular now, and we make a lot of them. And so I pretty much know how thick it's going to be. The last thing I do is I take this sponge, smooth that off, and smooth this off here, and I take this aluminum rib and I smooth this down so it gives it a real nice surface, so later when I decorate the pots that will be nice and smooth. And I sign my name, which is not very legible. You really could never read it. Well, you can read Tom there. And I always kind of joke it's like signing a check, you know. There it is, it's done. So that's how it's done. One of the things I really like about clay is you can add to it and you can subtract from it. The last time when I showed you trimming, that was subtracting from it, and this is how we add to clay. These are my mug design. It's a very simple, straightforward mug. I do hundreds of these every month, and it's our most popular item. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting this as slip or wet clay, putting it where the mug handle is going to go, and then I take this needle tool and I scratch into the surface of it so it makes it stick better. And the handle is made with this tool called an extruder. And this is loaded up with clay. And what I do is I just pull down on it, and that's where the handle comes from. Take this off carefully. You have to have sort of a light touch with clay. Set it out here on the plastic. That keeps it from drying out. And then I've got a knife here that, this is kind of a cool little coincidence. The length of the knife is the same length I need to make the handle. So let's do that. And then with the extra, I make a couple of, these are going to be the thumb grips. That's how I do a thumb grip, right there. And there. Take this, and I work really fast. I mean, it's kind of like working in a factory. Get a little more slip on there, slip on there. Then this process is just punch it, 1, 2, 3, bring it around, find your knife, cut it, and then punch it down like that and that. Make it smooth, make it smooth. Set it there, and then usually I just go down the line and put thumb grips on, but I'll show you how I do this for the sake of the movie. And punch it down there, there, and there. And that's how I make a handle, and I just go through and I'll do like 60 mugs at a time. And then I'll dry them slowly and fire them in the kiln later. This is a great part of the process. This is my kiln, and this is a lot different than the kiln that they had in the kilns they had in the 12th century in Korea. The kilns in Korea were wood-fired, and this kiln is propane-fired, and it's really neat because I don't have to go out and chop wood to get my fuel source. I've got a 500-gallon tank of propane outside the house, and that's what fires the kiln. There's burners right here that sound kind of like a jet engine when they go off. And what I'm doing right now is I'm loading the kiln, I'm stacking the kiln, and these are all the pots that I made the last week. And what I'm doing is I'm just going over here and popping them in, right like this. And then it stacks up. So right here, these are kiln shells, they're kind of heavy. And I'm popping them on right here. And that is how we do it. And what will happen is we'll roll the kiln in once it's packed up to the roof, shut the door, fire it, which is you turn on the burners. It takes about a day, about 8 hours of the gas. It goes up to almost 1800 degrees Fahrenheit, real hot, it's like red hot. And then it takes a day to cool, and then we'll roll it out. And that's the next thing we'll show you is rolling the kiln out.